In today's video, I want to talk about something that honestly took me years and thousands of patients to fully understand. And it took me that long because I was still operating under the same beliefs as a majority of dentists, as dentists that come out of school have been in practice for multiple years. And what are those beliefs? Well, those beliefs are that most dentists believe that patients choose them because of their skill, credentials, or technology. And after seeing thousands of patients, like 5,000 new patients plus, 1,000 plus consults, I'm here to tell you that is not true. Dentistry is becoming more technological every single year. We know that, especially with the hype of like AI, 3D printers, robots, and so on. But patient decisions are still emotional and still very human. And they're still based on psychology and an operating system, our brain, that hasn't changed in thousands of years, right? And before I move on, I want you to think about this for a moment here. I'm sure you've seen patients with horrible dental work, right? Horrible cosmetic work, horrible dentistry. I just saw a patient the other day, Monday, for a consult for veneers that she wants redone because they're quite frankly hideous. They didn't even honestly look like teeth. You think that patient chose that dentist because of his or her skills? I doubt it. They probably didn't even show them work that they had completed, like other before afters or other cases. And then maybe you're thinking, hey, Chris, maybe they were the cheapest. Well, that's not true either because the patient paid what I'd consider an average veneer fee, just a little bit less than what we charge. It simply came down to trust. This patient trusted this dentist with their mouth and their cosmetic work. But unfortunately, the work was horrible. And what's sad is that this trust can be taken advantage of, for good or for bad, like in this case. But the reality is trust, the office experience, and your communication is going to allow you to do more dentistry at the end of the day. Those three things. And today was one of these days where we had a couple consults. We had an all on X surgery in the morning, and every single one of these patients, they were from different backgrounds. They were not the same patients. They were different cases. They had different financial statuses, from low economic statuses to maybe somewhere in the middle. But the pattern was the same at the end of the day. And I started thinking about something I see over and over and over again, not just in our practice, but in other clinics that I've seen or helped or talked to. There are dentists with incredible technology. They've spent a lot of money, skills that they've developed, a lot of credentials, beautiful, beautiful offices, and they still struggle with case acceptance and doing the dentistry that they ideally want to do and that they love doing. And then there are practices like the one I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, with less technology, simpler setups, and the patients trust them instantly, right? So, why is that the case? Why does that happen? And the question becomes what actually drives patient decisions and what actually makes someone choose you, for example, compared to somebody else? If you can't answer both of those quickly and accurately, like what actually drives them, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars updating your office, taking courses, buying things, and still not do the dentistry that you want to do regularly. So, what do patients actually notice? Like, Chris, what do you actually mean by building trust and working on your communication? Well, what do I mean by that? Well, first, I want you to keep this in mind. What patients actually notice are called invisible differentiators, okay? Things that don't show up in a way on your website, things that you haven't bought, for example, or you haven't upgraded, or your clinical skills. These invisible differentiators truly, and I mean truly, determine whether someone trusts you and ultimately decides to do their work with you. And listen, when a patient decides to do more involved dentistry in the multiple five-figure range, they really need to trust one, you, they need to trust you, the dentist, the doctor. Two, very important, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later too, your team and your overall office. And with that said, I'm going to break down everything for you. There are 5 of these differentiators, the 5 important ones that I consider. Every single one of these are important, and you need to work on every single one of them to become the dentist that is doing all of these cases that you want to do ideally, often and frequent. First of these 5 is communication. The way you communicate and the way you have conversations with patients is so incredibly important. On top of that, the way things are explained matter more than what is explained. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Think of it this way. Two dentists can present the exact same treatment plan. Treatment plan A, two dentists with the exact same logic, and you can get completely different reactions depending on the communication styles of these dentists and the language that they use. One could start the case while the other completely loses the patient and doesn't get to do anything. It's literally that powerful. In fact, up-leveling your communication is so powerful that I've personally spent over 5 figures for personal coaches just to work on that skill alone over the past year. And I'm not even close to being great, right? It takes a lot of work, a lot of intentional work and effort. But the point is, I've realized how important it is as a skill in dentistry, but most importantly, as a general life skill. You want to keep someone's attention, your communication matters. You want to have a successful relationship, whether that's romantic or professional, your language and communication matters. And I can go on and on and on, but you get the point. And here's the thing. Patients aren't evaluating your clinical reasoning at the end of the day. In fact, 80% of them don't even care or know what the hell you're talking about anyways when you get clinical. Maybe that 20% care or they pretend to care. They're only evaluating how you make them feel, how interested you are in them, how you present yourself, and if you're keeping their attention, especially nowadays. Patients also, they want to feel understood, listened to, and cared for. And I've seen patients time and time again choose us, our office, over much cheaper options. We're also fee for service, so we've had patients leave for other offices. They've left our office, and guess what? They have come back, not because of the dentistry, but because of our team and the way that we care for them. Simply because we are different in all aspects besides the dentistry part. And a big part of that comes down to communication skills from your team to you. Now, what are some things that you can work on right away regarding communication? A big one is language shifts. A language shift is just changing the way that you say something by creating more weight to the situation and associating it with a positive outcome. For example, instead of saying you have recurrent decay on your molar and we need to crown your molar, it's much, much better to lead off with the filling that you have on this tooth has decay underneath it and it's leaking. And once we remove the filling and get rid of the decay, your tooth is going to be weaker. There's going to be a lot of tooth structure that's missing. So the best thing to do is put a cap on it. The cap is going to protect your tooth underneath. You won't have to worry about your tooth breaking. Does that make sense? So we went from you need a crown to this crown is going to protect the tooth underneath. You won't have to worry about your tooth breaking. Do you see how that very, very simple example, right? Makes more sense to the patient, but also you associate a positive outcome with it at the end of the day. Like, why the hell am I even getting this crown anyways, right? Another result of using language shifts is that they also build trust quicker. Without the language shift in the crown example, I just come off as a dentist that is trying to sell them something or get them to do something. But with the language shift, I've clearly explained the situation, I've explained the issue, how it's going to affect them, and more importantly, what we can do right now to get them to optimal dental health. Now, I'm not just selling dentistry, I'm selling an optimal outcome and something that they'd want to avoid, a broken tooth. And then another thing, please, please, please eliminate weak language from your vocabulary completely. Like I think, or we'll try, maybe, hopefully, and so on. You need to portray confidence, okay? Like, this is what I recommend. This is the best solution for you. Here's why, and so on. You need to transfer that confidence and not be wishy-washy. People, patients can sense it. And there's so much more that I could talk about regarding communication techniques. This is one of a few things that we help clients with in our one-on-one coaching program. Obviously, we dive deeper and it's much more personalized to their situation and what they want to improve. But if you're interested, just click the link below. Now, moving on to number 2, personal touch. There's a famous quote by Dale Carnegie. If you've ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's a pretty famous book, but a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. And this was true in 1936 and it's true in 2026, almost 100 years later. And it's going to be true for as long as humans are around. You and your team need to get in the habit of remembering details. Things like names, concerns, worries, hardships, their jobs, their family, events, and other small details that come up during the normal course of conversation. These things on the surface may seem small and insignificant, but when you remember them, it tells the patient and it shows them that they matter. Because the biggest thing a patient does not want to feel like is just another case or number that is walking through the office. In fact, not just new patients, right? Please honor your existing patients too. For example, last week we gave one of our All-on-X recall patients a potted plant. Very simple. It was like a red lipstick or something like that to symbolize her new smile she's had for a year. Little things like this for your existing patients create raving fans and referral sources. And when you add all these personal touches, you create an experience that can't be purchased anywhere else or really replicated. A patient can go out and buy this. The vast majority of offices don't even do like 50% of this, and it's so simple. And this goes beyond building patient loyalty, by the way. When you add a personalized touch to each patient experience, something amazing happens. Price sensitivity drops dramatically, for example. Yes, it may still be a big price, but they're not as shocked. The trust level increases dramatically and the anxiety decreases dramatically. And if they buy into the treatment and they buy into you, they're going to find a way to make it work. Why? Because ultimately it's for the patient's benefit and their health, and they trust you. And listen, you probably care very deeply about your patients, but if you don't show them that you care by curating an experience, a unique and different experience, starting from the phone call, your team and you won't stand out. You're not going to be able to telepathically communicate your care or your credentials or your uniqueness unless you put in the effort. Okay? So that was point number 2. Let's move on to point number 3. This is very underrated in dentistry and not talked about enough. Hospitality. Dentistry is closer to a hospitality business than it is a service-based business. In fact, all service-based businesses, in my opinion, should lean on hospitality, but that's a topic for another day. Okay? Patients come for their dentistry, and you might have heard this before, and they have some kind of dental problem that they want to address or whatever it is, but stay because they buy into the hospitality that you show them. If you've ever stayed at a 5-star hotel, you know what I mean. Whether it's a 3 or 5-star hotel, you sleep in the same bed, right? You have the same room, there's 4 walls, but the difference comes down to the small things. From the greeting to the personalized attention and attentiveness of the team, of the staff there in the service, the quality of the bed sheets, for example, the quality of the mattress, the shower, even down to the floor and the faucets. As silly as it may sound, people pay attention to those things, especially when they're done very well or at a high level, high quality. But at the end of the day, what do the majority care about? They care about the human service. If that sucks, everything else will suck too. Like no matter what, how nice your equipment is, how nice your technology is, or your waiting room is, or your bathroom is. So if your office feels clinical and transactional and just cold, your patients are going to mirror that back to you. They're going to mirror back the coldness. Think about it. How can they experience a lack of an experience and poor hospitality, but mirror back joy and acceptance of 4 to 5 figure treatment plans? It doesn't make sense unless you just get lucky once a month. So please focus on the art of making people feel cared for. And there's quite a bit that goes into this before, during, and after the appointment. Again, another thing that we help clients with one-on-one because it's so important. Next is point number 4, comfort and safety. This one is often easily overlooked, but fear reduction is a really important aspect of dentistry. And we kind of know this, right? We automatically think that people fear dentistry due to like pain, needles, drills, or whatever tool scares them. But that's only one piece. The reality is that most patients don't really fear the pain only. They fear unpredictability. They feel the loss of control. They fear loss of money, and basically many other reasons besides just the fear of drills or needles. And that comes with feelings of like embarrassment, possible judgment, negativity, whatever it may be, right? Your job is to acknowledge their fears, address them, and help them through that. And that can be done in so many different ways. Like I said, for the most part, we know how to address fears of pain as dentists. We have like sedation methods and meds and so on. But how do you address the fears of unpredictability? Or the fear of, is this going to be worth it? Or what if I'm choosing the wrong place, the wrong office, the wrong dentist? Those types of fears. How do you address those? There are many different ways that you can tackle those fears. 2 easy ones are acting like a human that cares and listens, and the other is showing patients examples of photos and videos and before and afters of countless of patients that have done just that in their lives and that you've treated in your hands and they've experienced an amazing outcome. Both of these quickly dissipate feelings of unpredictability, like loss of control and even embarrassment, because it shows patients that 1, you care, the dentist cares, and 2, they aren't alone. There are tens or maybe even hundreds of people like them, who have trusted your practice and your hands and have transformed their health and lives because of it. Now, this is just two broad techniques. There are so many more, but the goal is your environment and your office and your language needs to reduce uncertainty in patients, because when patients feel safe and comfortable, they generally accept treatment easier and faster. Now, the last point about what patients actually notice. And this is one a lot of dentists overlook or they don't pay too much attention to. It's another underrated factor, because as dentists, we think patients are only judging us, when in reality, they're evaluating each and every person that they interact with in your office. And that's your team culture. If you think about it, right? Just think about this for a moment. Your patients interact with your team more than they ever interact with you. The cumulative hours that they spend talking to their front desk assistants, treatment coordinators, hygienists, topples the hours that they spend talking to you. And in a way, your team becomes a reflection of you. They judge your ability and your level of care through their interactions with your team. And a lot of dentists, like I said, they overlook this, when it's quite honestly one of the most important factors. And sometimes dentists carry this ego, like I'm the star of the show or I'm the owner of the clinic or whatever it may be, when in reality, you wouldn't have a show without the supporting cast. Just think about how many like sitcoms or TV shows that you've watched where your favorite character wasn't really the main actor, right? You could probably think of like several examples. And all that to say, we're nothing without our team. So please, please focus on up-leveling them. And you can only do that when you're demonstrating everything that you want them to be. You already know this, but always remember how much the team interacts with the patient. The team interacts with the patient first. They set the tone, and that carries over into the office visit and ultimately with you, the dentist. And the easiest way to do this is to adopt one vision, one philosophy, and culture within your clinic. It makes it easy to stick to, and their experience is consistent across every patient. And on top of that, in order to successfully implement all this, your leadership skills are critical. That's another thing that we focus on with our clients one-on-one. You can't run an effective team and an office experience without being a strong leader yourself, right? And that's really it for part one, what patients actually notice. Like I mentioned, we help clients with this one-on-one on every single one of these. But as I'm sure you realize, there's a lot that goes into it and a ton of techniques that you can implement right away. Even just one of those techniques is going to massively help you. Now, moving on to the second part of this video with a small point on technology, because I've been brushing it off a lot in this video. But here's what technology is good at. It's good at getting attention and helping you clinically, and that's about it. Tech does woo patients, so to say, or that looks cool, or wow, these guys have everything in-house, or whatever it is. And it does help you clinically. Don't get me wrong, whether it makes your job easier or more efficient, I'm not discounting that at all. We have plenty of tech in our office that I can work without day to day. But think about this. It's like when you hire a contractor that has a bunch of expensive tools, fancy tools, whatever they may be, and you're like, wow, he's prepared, right? But you really don't really care about it, right? That's not reality. As long as the job gets done and it gets done properly, good quality, the tools probably matter to him, but not that much to you as a consumer. You probably don't even care. You probably didn't even hire him because of his tools either. That's where experience and trust comes in. So yes, technology is going to generate attention, but experience gets acceptance and trust gets the final commitment. So if you were advertising for teeth in a day, right? Let's say, or same day crowns, whatever dental tech that you have, that might get patients in the door, but it's likely not going to make them say yes to treatment. So just keep this in mind. Technology has its place, but just consider any new tech you buy with respects to how it can service you and make your job easier. And actually audit your purchases, right? Don't just buy things for the sake of buying them because they look cool. And also don't hope that the more tech that you buy is going to get you patients. It doesn't work like that. On to part three, the emotional decision framework. I briefly touched on this through my explanation of each point in part one, but I'd like to reiterate it once again and summarize it into its own part because it's so important. Patients don't necessarily choose the best dentist. Heck, 9 times out of 10, they don't even know what to look for in the best dentist, clinically at least. They're choosing based on how they feel in your presence. They choose the dentist who feels the safest and the most comfortable option to them. Remember, as a dentist, you and your team need to be accomplishing these points: emotional safety, psychological safety, right? predictability, clarity in the patient's mind, and trust. This is the multiplier of everything above. Trust isn't built by saying, trust me, right? It's built through doing everything that I mentioned, plus showing that you genuinely care as a human. And this is what you need to aim for with every new patient interaction. They are all emotionally driven aspects. There's very, very little logic involved. Logic justifies the decision after it's made emotionally. Logic always comes second to emotion, generally speaking. Patients don't say yes because your implant system has a better surface treatment, right? They say yes because they feel safe, they feel understood, and they feel confident that you, the dentist, is not going to let them down. Logic always comes second to emotion, almost always, through any purchase, by the way, not just dentistry. And the last part number 4, if I had to start over knowing what I know now after dealing with, like I said, thousands of patients, 5,000 plus by now, it's this. I wouldn't focus on the technology, or even I wouldn't even start with it. I'd start with my team, the people that are truly a reflection of your vision for your practice and the ones that patients deal with and talk to every single day. And I'd focus on communication training and dialing in your language as the dentist and your team's language so that we're focusing on positive outcomes and encounters and dentistry as a tool to achieve those outcomes, not the other way around. Next, I'd focus on hospitality. Bring in strategies from 5-star hotels or even high-end restaurants and use them to make the experience above and beyond what patients would expect in a dental office. Approaching dentistry with a hospitality mindset is going to truly set you apart from literally every other clinic in your community, if not your state. And I'd focus on standardizing the patient experiences from a culture and a patient philosophy perspective, right? And I don't mean standardizing by being a robot or a dental clinic, McDonald's factory chain, standardization. You just need to have one culture, one vision, and one patient philosophy for your clinic, coupled with strong leadership on your end as the dentist to implement all of this. It's how you're going to ensure the experience is consistent and positive for each and every new patient. You need clear standards, right? For how patients are greeted, how consultations or new patient exams are conducted, how fears are handled, how new patient exams or consults are going to flow, how follow-ups are done, how problems are resolved. When everyone operates the same more or less, patients feel that and they feel that the team is in sync. And it's also one of those things that they notice subconsciously. And once the foundational pieces are in place, you can layer on everything else. The marketing is going to work better. The technology is going to enhance the experience instead of trying to compensate for it in the beginning as like a weakness, right? At that point, you can expand, you can invest, you can add services, buy whatever technology you want. Why? Because the foundation can support it. Most practices do this in the complete reverse. They chase the shiny objects first, they pay a lot of money, and they try to fix the experience later while losing even more money in the process. So if I had to start over, I'd build the damn foundation first, as you should whenever you're building anything, and everything else would become so much easier from there. So that's it, guys. That's a brief summary of the most important things. I know it's over 20 minutes, but honestly, this is a very important video, and it's pretty much what I've learned over 5,000 plus new patients. And look, dentistry is going to keep evolving, technology is going to keep advancing, but the fundamentals of human psychology won't change. Emotions and trust have been ingrained into us as humans for thousands of years, and it's going to carry on for thousands of years more. Lead every new patient experience with making patients feel understood, cared for, and respected. And make sure this is the same for every team member too. If you do this, you are always going to have the advantage over other dentists. I promise you. And if this resonated with you and you'd like some help one-on-one, click the link below, like I said. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.